So this blind guy's crying out to Jesus, and the church people are rebuking him and telling him to shut up. Like Jesus is too busy. Like Jesus is too important. I don't know. It's crazy. Like, why are the church people stopping somebody who's desperately in need of a touch from a supernatural God? They're telling him to stay silent. And what happens? Hey, welcome to Bible Time, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Exciting stuff. I painted my office. I put up this piece of art that I made of one of my favorite verses. Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you, lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And Numbers 6:24-26. Even got a brand new behind the scenes music track from my buddy Omar. So, new season for Bible Time. Thanks for joining along this journey. If you've been with me for a while, what a privilege it is to be able to read the Bible with you. If you're new to these videos, and however you stumbled across it, just want to let you know this is a place to read the Bible. That's probably obvious to you, but just want to let you know this is not primarily for study. This is primarily for devotional reading. That is to read the Word and pray and spend time with God simply for relationship's sake. And so that's what this is all about. And so with that, we're going to jump right into the Gospel of Luke, chapter 18, starting in verse 31. So let's jump right in. It says, "And taking the 12, he said to them, 'See, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man by the prophets will be accomplished.'" So, of course, he's speaking about basically what would be contained in the Old Testament prophets. So that's obvious, but if you don't maybe know what that means, there's a number of books specifically in the Old Testament that would have been there's a number of books in the Old Testament that would specifically be referred to as the prophets, like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. There's major prophets and minor prophets. The major prophets, those books tend to be longer. The minors tend to be smaller. Anyway, they all lived and prophesied around the time when the kingdom was splitting, dividing, giving, totally just turning from the Lord in sin. So a lot of really bad kings. And there's a cyclical pattern of the people doing sin, turning from God, bad things happening, crying out to God, God redeeming them, etc. And then there's, of course, was the exiles, the two great exiles. And anyway, the point is, and of course there was prophecies that took place in some of the law books and some of the history books and all that. But the point is that of all of the prophecies that were spoken about the coming Messiah, in what we would know as the Old Testament, Jesus is saying that all of them are going to be accomplished. And so it's an absolutely amazing thing, actually, if you do spend some time studying all the different prophecies that this person Jesus fulfilled. It's just incredible to think the odds of just some person, regular person, being able to fulfill these prophecies is astronomical. And so again, it speaks to his deity. It speaks towards God's character, his the intricacy with which he works and operates and fulfills his promises. So anyway, let's continue. Verse 32. "For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles and will be mocked and shamefully treated and spit upon. And after flogging him, they will kill him." So here he is, of course, speaking about himself in the third person. "And on the third day he will rise." But they understood none of these things. So like it says here, the subtitle that we added later, this is now the third time that Jesus has basically prophesied or foretold his own death and resurrection, and yet they continue to not understand what he's saying. And I think that that's understandable. It's like, that didn't happen, right? So it's just not as clear to them as maybe we would think it is to us. And that totally makes sense. So, and it says, this is an interesting addition, though. It says, this saying was hidden from them, and they did not grasp what was said. And so, it's pretty clear that the author is trying to insinuate that, hey, they weren't getting it, and at least to a degree, something was being hidden or not revealed fully to them by the Holy Spirit. And so they didn't fully put together what he was saying. And I don't know what the conclusions are that you might draw from that. I think at least one, not conclusion, but like one thing that we can glean from that thought is that, if we're going to take the Holy Spirit's actions and maybe see a pattern, then it could be argued that at the very least, he has before, and he just might desire to again, reveal something to us as a precursor even before we're able to comprehend it fully. But he might reveal something to us either through a prophetic word or a sermon or a thought that we have, but it's like, I feel like he said this, but I don't get it, or that prophetic word doesn't really match up, or we're just not grasping something. But for whatever reason, because he could have just kept his mouth shut. He didn't have to say that a third time, a first, second, or third time, but he did. And so it's just important, I think, sometimes to be like, okay, this is how he operated, how he acted. And so it just might be that there's value in the heart of God for proclaiming truths that we might not yet understand, or even that he's keeping us from fully understanding until the right time comes. And he has his own reasons for that. Maybe, it's because we're not ready. Maybe it's because the prophetic word needs to set us on the track that it's going to be fulfilled 20 years down the road. Or maybe it's so when something happens a year, 2 years, 10 years down the road, we can look back and say, oh, God was faithful because I knew he told me that a long time ago. Whatever his reasoning is, let's just be aware that sometimes God does that. All right, verse 35. And he drew near to Jericho, and a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. And hearing the crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. And they told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. And he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Now, this shows that he was not just a random guy to this blind beggar. This guy had at least heard of him, thought or knew something about him, because to use these terms is significant. So he was told, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. So it's the Jesus that comes out of Nazareth. He must have known who he was because he cries out, Jesus. Obviously, that's his name. But here's the term that would have spoken towards some depth, not only of knowledge about him, but theological knowledge about, who David was, the history of David, and what was to come from David. Because one of the prophecies that Jesus is fulfilling is the fact that he comes from the line of David, and the prophecy basically declares that the Messiah will come from David's line, and that the covenant is that there will be a king reigning in the line of David as an everlasting covenant. And so here it's insinuated that the blind man is crying out and appealing to this Jesus based on his identity, not just based on his action. And so, because he could have said Jesus the healer, or if he had simply heard that he was somebody that healed people, or Jesus the miracle worker, or Jesus, and he could have referenced some of the things that Jesus did, but instead he referenced his identity going back all the way to the greatest king in Israel's history, and specifically speaking towards the prophecy that the Messiah, the Son of God, would come specifically from that line. And so, I don't know. I just think it's awesome, number one. Number two, maybe it's a pattern for prayer for us to think about how is it when we approach God that we can ask. Maybe we ought to reference his identity, his authority, his promises his covenants that he made, his promises that he made years ago, that we can grab onto. And so this exchange is interesting. Jesus is walking by, there's a million people around. This guy's blind and sitting way off in the corner probably, but he hears Jesus is coming by, so he yells out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy. Mercy is what he needs. Have mercy. In fact, healing is what he needs, but he references and asks for mercy. And those who went in front rebuked him, telling him to be silent. Man, isn't that so crazy that, again, the church folk are trying to keep somebody from Jesus? Man, it's like they did this with the kids. And why? Why are we trying to keep people from Jesus? Maybe it's because he has a lot to do. He's busy. He's important. And as much as I might judge these guys, I just wonder if I've ever done that in my life. Have I, by either rules and regulations or church hierarchy and cliquishness or position, or maybe somebody's stature or look or appearance or whatever, I don't know. Has there ever been a way that I have, without saying, be quiet, get away from Jesus, but has there ever been a way that I've kept somebody from Jesus when I know my job in life literally is to help people get to Jesus? So it's always a challenging thing to think about for me. It just doesn't make sense why they would do that. They rebuked the dude, telling him to be silent when he's just trying to get to Jesus. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. I love this. He's not willing to let these guys hinder him. He must have Jesus. And so Jesus stopped, and he commanded him to be brought to him. Now this is funny to me. Interesting. Like, Jesus is the one walking. He's going from village to village. He's literally walking right then. He could have just walked to the guy. But instead, he has the guy come to him. And maybe, I don't know why, maybe again, it's this invitation to say, how much do you really want it? But this blind guy is now needing to come to Jesus. And so when he came near, Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do for you? Come on, that's a silly question. It's like this dude is blind. He's begging. He's crying out. It's probably pretty obvious what he wants. I mean, even if it's not abundantly clear that his first request would be to see, it's obvious that he needs something. He's a blind beggar, but Jesus always gives the invitation, asking us to ask him, asking us to let him know, inviting us to let him know what it is that we want and desire and need. Remember, Jesus said in Matthew 6, when he's talking about prayer, that he wants us to come to him and ask. And then he says, and God knows everything you need before you ask, and yet he's still inviting us to come to God. It's this invitation into a trust, into not reliance on ourselves. Even though God knows everything, he wants us to come to him and ask and request. And so he says, what do you want me to do for you? And he says, Lord, let me recover my sight. And Jesus said to him, recover your sight. Now watch this. Your faith has made you well. And immediately he recovered his sight, and he followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, they gave praise to God. I love this. And again, it shows the importance of this thing called faith. This is not the first time that Jesus has used this term. Your faith has made you well. Obviously, it was Jesus that made him well, but the faith was involved. The faith was required. The faith was there. The faith showed up when he screamed. The faith showed up when he screamed again. The faith showed up when he got on his feet and made his way to Jesus. The faith showed up when he boldly asked for what he wanted. And I would say the faith continued when he was healed and he followed Jesus, and the faith continued when he glorified God, and the faith continued when what took place in his life led to other people glorifying God. And so I think, man, how many takeaways are there from this passage? Many, many, many. As for me, I'm personally very challenged. How often do I let something stop me from crying out to God? If even my own laziness, if even my own schedule, I don't even need somebody yelling at me, persecuting me, telling me to shut up and stop praying. It's sometimes just laziness. It's sometimes just sleep. It's Netflix. It's social media and just scrolling. It's lack of desire. It's a million things that stop me from crying out to God. Why do we do that? That doesn't even make sense. Like, there is a God that loves us and wants to provide for us and wants to be our source, wants to be in our relationship with us, with his presence. Why do we not cry out to him? Why do we not approach him in deep and real and sincere faith? And so I'm challenged by that. And when God does show up, do we immediately convert his presence to glorifying him, following him, and teaching other people to do the same thing? So that's what I've got. Hey, I'd love to hear what you got from this passage. Would you leave a comment below, or shoot me a message, or both? I love hearing from you. New friends are messaging me. I just heard in one of my previous videos a couple days ago, one of my new friends in the UK found out about these because she was searching for who the Samaritans were. And man, it's just so awesome to have people join me from all over the world. I'm glad that it's beneficial to you. Leave a comment. Would you also consider hitting subscribe and sharing this with somebody? If you even just take a screenshot and put it on your social media pages, that's how the word gets out. And I'm not trying to build a platform for myself. I'm just trying to help people this year read the Bible and grow in their intimacy with Jesus and their obedience to him. And so thanks for joining me on the journey, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. God bless.